You're listening to Two Guys Talking Wine with Michael Pincus and Andre Proulx.
I know I will not become rich from this, but I feel very rich from what I'm doing.
Absolutely love that.
You know, if there's any few words that explain being in the wine business, those are them. If anyone thinks they're going to get rich making wine, and, you know, I think the adage is true. The best way to make a small fortune in the wine business is to start with a large fortune. And, you know, if anything, it makes me more proud that we know people like Ilya and Nadia Senchuk and Kevin Penagapka and, you know, the very Andrew and Christina Brooks at Back 10 Cellars, the very few people in Niagara who recently have bootstrapped it, started with nothing and built up. It's hard.
And so much passion. So I think, first of all, I should talk about our two guests. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you, for the second time, we have Ofelia Bartolucci.
Ta-da!
From Italy.
Hi, guys.
Ofelia, you want to tell people who you are again?
Okay. I'm Ofelia. I come from Italy. I'm a brand curator, and I work with the wine and food Italian business to position it on the market.
Okay, and then...
You know, Michael has done impressions of you on this podcast from time to time?
I have not. I have never done anything like this.
Oh, wow. She does not look happy right now.
Okay.
What are we doing today, Michael?
And then fresh from our interview in Summa, and that voice that we heard right off the top, I'm going to let him introduce himself.
Who am I? I don't know. I mean, I'm a guy who has been working in the wine industry for quite a while now. So,
who are you?
Federico Graziani. Today I'm a producer in Etna, Northern Slope, but I've been around in wine for the last 35 years, moving from sommelier. I wrote a little bit. I wrote 5 books about wine, and I've been best sommelier in Italy some 27 years ago, so quite a few. And after 20 years in the industry, I decided to move a little bit further. So I started studying winemaking in Milan with Attilio Scienza, that is one of the greatest viticulturists in Europe, I would say. Just by fate, I discovered a small vineyard that was going to be explanted, and it started as a hobby, what today became my life.
So I love his story. I love his backstory, and I could chop this down, but it's just so interesting to hear how he got into the wine business. And I maybe just a little bit of an explanation here before we go on with this next clip. Explanted basically means ripped up. He found a vineyard that was going to be ripped up, but he calls it explanted.
I tasted the first wine of Etna in 2004, I would say. And so I decided to go a couple of years later to discover the place, as I did many times in many places. I've seen vineyard, I would say, in 4 continents. After 2 years, I had to finish one of the book I was talking about, and I was very late. So I had to give the book finished for 3-4 weeks. So I was speaking to Salvo Foti, which at the time became my friend, and we kept in touch after my first visit. And he said, Federico, just come. And I have a little house in the middle of the vineyard. You can stay there 10 days, 2 weeks, no problem. And I said, that's a good idea. And I had to do some interview in between Milan, where I was working and living. Coming down, I interviewed Gianfranco Soldera, and then I stopped to Marisa Cuomo, and then to Silvia Imparato from Montevetrano, and then Giuseppe Benanti, and then Salvo Foti. So all these guys were in my book as an interview. So I took my car and do all the way down. And I stayed for these 10 days, and it was magic. I really fell in love with Etna in this little house in the middle of the vineyard. I saw the old vineyard. I saw the energy of the volcano. The excursion between day and night was really strong and really had a feeling of a special place. And nothing, just a day I was giving back the key of the little house to Salvo when I was going back. We had a granita in the only bar in Pasupciaro, so Passo Pisciaro, there is a crossroad and one bar. Actually, there are two butchers. One of them walk in the bar and ask help about explanting a little vineyard next to his, or Salvo's. And so when I heard this, I said, shall we have a look first? Because, but at the end, yes, I bought nearly half an hectare of 100 years old vineyard, just 1 month before it was would have been planted. And I said, Salvo, you have to give me a hand. We cannot lose this vineyard. It's too important. And he said, okay, Salvatore means save us. So he couldn't say no. And that was just the beginning. So I started still as sommelier in a 2 Michelin star restaurant in Milan. I was finishing my study in winemaking, and I decided that it would have been a nice way to put my little money.
It's the one global trend I am fully on board with, is in regions around the world with old vineyards that you have new people trying to reclaim an old heritage as opposed to having it be lost. And it was fascinating to see in Portugal what's happening is that there's almost a little bit of a battle. And, we talked about it in the Bill Cart Salmon episode about what globalization has done to the wine industry. Is a lot of Portuguese winemakers closer to the central of the country feel like to compete on the global market, they have to plant Syrah, they have to plant Cabernet Sauvignon, where when you get further north, you get to places like Vinho Verde where they haven't had the ability to compete on a global stage, and they're still working with indigenous red varieties. And, I saw it in Chile as well. With Di Martino, with what they're doing, reclaiming old vineyards. So it's a really cool story. Does he only farm a half hectare?
No, we'll get into that in a bit.
Okay.
That's how he starts.
Okay, I'll let you drive the bus.
That's how he starts. But I mean, what an interesting story, right? You're sitting in the bar, you're ready to leave town. There's two butchers, one bar, you're having a granita, and the next thing you know, you're talking to one of the butchers who goes, anybody can help me rip out 100-year-old vines on Etna? And you go,
I'll buy it.
Wait, let's take a quick look at this before you start ripping shit out. I found the story fascinating. I found Federico to be absolutely fascinating as we talked further. Ofelia, I have to say, I really appreciated you first getting us in, because this was done at Summa, and he gave a talk about his top-end wine, and he was so just open about his whole story, about how he did. It's not like, mom and dad had a lot of money and they poured it in. It's like an authentic, let's find a vineyard, let's start a winery. This is my passion. Go. And I think you found the same.
Well, yeah, and I was the one to suggest you we have to go to the workshop, because he is wonderful, and he is a lot. He did a lot for the wine. I mean, he's doing a lot for the wine culture in Italy, and he also is able to build an heritage. Because it's really a cultural act what he's doing, and it's funny when he says, I don't know if you recall in the interview when he says, "Okay, I bought my apartment in Milan, and I sold my apartment in Milan to buy another vineyard."
Yes,
so
okay. So I think that's where we get into the next part of this whole thing. Because Andre, as you know, as somebody who has is making wine now, you know that things don't always go as planned. So he's bought this 1/2 hectare.
It's not only do they don't always go as planned, they never go as planned.
No, they never go.
No.
So there's always hiccups along the way. He buys the vineyard in 2008, but his first vintage is not until 2010. And why?
There is a little something I didn't know. For example, if you buy the vineyard in September or August, as in my case, the butcher, in this case, of the place of the vineyard, worked the vineyard more months than you would have before harvest. So we said, compri la vigna ma non il frutto. You buy the vineyard but not the fruit. And so I was quite disappointed because I was already there. Actually, this was the first come down to me. The second one was the 2009, where we had like 23, 24 days of rain in September. So discussing with Salvo Foti, which I work with, he said, Federico, you want to do a great wine? I said, yes. Okay, next year. So we sold the grape, and it was a bit disappointing for me because I had to wait another year. At the same time, we spend, it's not a big vineyard, but all for restoring this vineyard because it needed to be restored a little bit. You understand, you don't decide. In this case, I really have the opinion I have to just follow what's happening.
So basically, he can't make wine for 2 years because of circumstances. He owns the vineyard, but he doesn't own the grapes. The next vintage is just such a terrible vintage that his mentor says, forget it. You can't make wine because you're never going to make great wine with these grapes. And then, from half a hectare, you're really not going to make a lot of wine. So what happens is he starts talking about expansion. And I said, you can't just be making wine from a half hectare. And so he says, I'm not. Go.
Of course. I mean, from the first vintage, I produced like 1,100 bottles, 1,200 bottles, and it's not enough to survive, and you have to do something. For the first 3 years, I was still in restaurants, and then I got married, and I moved from the restaurant and I started to work for a bigger winery, and was fun. But at the same time, I had the chance to, piece by piece, I planted my last 7th hectare last year, but now I have the dimension I want. So, yes, 7 hectares would be 35 to 40,000 bottles. Is the perfect site for me because I don't want to become too big and I have to stay in an office all day. Just I want to go around. I want to talk about my wine. I want to meet my clients in New York and in Italy and go around and see the restaurants, and that's very important for me. So probably today I would have the chance to produce and to sell more than what I do, but at the same time I want to keep my winery as small as I can really enjoy. I know I will not become rich from this, but I feel very rich from what I'm doing.
I again, there's that quote that we started the podcast with, and Andre, it made me think of yourself trying to build a wine business.
It's very flattering for you to say that, but listening to him talk about that whole sentence, it reminds me of how Dave and Louise used to talk when they started Featherstone. And I remember when they reached about 15,000 cases, which would be a comparable size to what Federico had done. And I said, well, are you looking at doing any expansion? And they said no, they were comfortable with the size of the winery. And that was one of the things where I thought about, because it's just the nature of capitalism is supposed to be endless growth, right? But, being able to run your business where you reach a cap, hit a market, fill a gap, and make a decent living for yourself, I think that's something that should be celebrated.
I like when he says, because this is very typical for an artisan, but it's also very typical if you live on a volcano. When he says, I understood, we don't decide. This is a kind of very tough thing, if you think about that, because it's not just because the wine is not good enough at the moment or the vineyard are not ready, but because in any moment Etna can erupt and the vineyard are right under the volcano.
Well, the interesting part about Etna, and I learned about this while we were, in his seminar, that Etna has actually grown 30 meters.
I'm reading about Etna right now because it's the sort of thing where you imagine a dormant volcano somewhere in Italy, and then here's what Google says: Etna is Europe's most active volcano, erupts frequently, with eruptions occurring multiple times a year.
Correct.
Sometimes even within the same month.
I mean, but it's
this is it.
But if you think about it, it has grown. Like, we when we talked about Champagne last time, there's no more room in Champagne. Right, that's it. They are stuck at the dimension they are. Etna is growing 30 meters last year alone. Like, Granted, I don't think you're going up to the crater and planting vines, but it means that you're now 30 meters further from
That's
the
it.
crater.
We usually go up the mountain to get away from the heat.
And you're getting right there. So I'm gonna have Federico talk about his wines and some of the experimentation that he's doing with grapes on Etna, and then we're gonna open a wine called Marineve and discuss it on the other side.
So Profumo di Vulcano is the first I started to do, and then I do this more simple, in one way, Etna Rosso, which is a blend of two vineyards, quite important vineyard, because Feudo di Mezzo and Contrada Monte La Guardia are two very famous Contrada. And then the third one, the last to come, is this Rosso di Mezzo. So the class Profumo di Vulcano, and is now the fourth vintage I have producing it, and it's very good. And I produce only one white wine. So I found a very crazy vineyard, experimental, so I don't like normal things. And this vineyard is nearly 1,200 meters above the sea level. So it's one of the highest vineyards in Europe. And Caricante, that is the native variety from Etna Bianco, didn't ripe at that altitude. So when I bought the vineyard, this vineyard has been planted to experiment Northern European variety on a volcanic soil. So I found German Riesling, Rhenan Riesling, Gewürztraminer, and I implemented with Chenin Blanc and a little bit of Grecanico, that is the only native variety from Etna that can hardly ripe at that altitude. And since my second vintage, which was 2017, I decided to add a little bit of Caricante in order to keep the wine a little less aromatic, because probably I wouldn't have planted the Gewürztraminer. It's not my favorite grape. But at the same time, I think it's important today for this blend that I'm sort of cutting like a suit over my palate. And I'm happy today. I think Marineve is the name of the wine. It doesn't really taste of Gewürztraminer. For me, it's a winning. At the same time, has a good minerality. It doesn't do any malolactic, so it's very vertical and doesn't do any oak. So it's a very vertical wine, saltiness, freshness on the side, and I like it.
I agree with him. I like this wine, and like, let's bring it back quickly to Ontario. When you get Gewürztraminer in any kind of white blend, you taste it. Yep. If you had told me, well, he has told us that Gewürztraminer is in, I don't taste Gewürztraminer.
Okay, so it's a very good wine, but I'm a little disappointed that it's all international varieties, and I was hoping it would be
Caricante.
Yeah, okay, fine, but you've sprinkled that on top of Riesling and Gewürztraminer, right? Am I understanding correctly?
There's Chenin Blanc as well in there.
Okay, international
But
variety.
he doesn't like the way that the one grape grows up there, and why you're going to make a crappy wine.
No, I get that. I completely get that. The thing is, like, I'm actually surprised because Chenin and Gewürztraminer Riesling are all highly aromatic. Like, you would get peach or really bright citrus from the Riesling. You get those tropical notes from Gewürztraminer. Chenin often has the beeswax on the nose, and the thing is, for me, it's just like it's a lot of citrus, but a lot of mineral, a lot of white flower. Sure. It's a symphony of what you expect from really great white wine, which is why I'm surprised to hear those international varieties are in it, as opposed to just Italian indigenous varieties.
It could also be that the terroir that you can find, the terroir in the soil that you can find and on the volcan is so different, it's so unique that you might not even recognize the international grape. And the largest part, I believe, is Caricante. It's the one that was common. There was a region. And I believe we found part of these that were already there. Yeah, but you're right. But in this case, that the soil is Etna, it's a big guess.
Yeah, that saltiness, that minerality, that John Zabo wrote a book on volcanic wines. And, when you finally get a chance to taste some of these things, you can understand why people...
I've never had a bad wine from Etna. And, frankly, when I see them on the shelf, I gravitate to them because they are so unique.
Unique,
Like, if
interesting, fun.
Minerality has somehow become a dirty word, and then it wasn't a dirty word, and now it's a dirty word. If you really want to taste minerality, you need to get an Etna wine, because they always just scream like they taste like crunchy rocks.
Yeah, there's a lot in there. So, obviously you can tell that Federico is very excited about what he's doing on Etna. And that excitement is like palpable. Sitting in a room with him, you could feel that. Like, he has got a love for this place. And I asked him about the benefits and the challenges of working on a volcano. And to tell you the truth, he talked more about the benefits than he did about any kind of downside.
As a benefit, we have the chance to work on a big mountain, so we can move a bit higher as the climate change goes. So recently we can see really people are moving a bit up. And I don't know if the DOC will be ready to move up as producers are doing, but probably in the future will happen this. But at the moment, some of the highest vineyards are outside the DOC. And so this is quite normal. I mean, we have the case of Sassicaia that has been for many years Vino da Tavola, where today is an appellation for a single vineyard winery. But we know in Italy this is very slow. So, yeah, politician is very slow, and we have to wait. But this is not a problem. But we have the chance to move up. We can move easily from 800 meters to 1,000 meters to 1,200 meters in a few minutes. So we can have vineyard where they used to be, probably some 100 years ago. This is something that is very important. The energy of the people, the idea, different idea from different countries, different style. I think the consortium in Etna is doing quite well to promote and to keep the level of the standard of the quality quite high. Another benefit, in my point of view, is mechanization in Etna is very low. You have to do still a lot of work by hand. And this helps not to have too much wine over, as happened in other side of Italy and other side of Sicily. If we think of Nero d'Avola, what happened with Nero d'Avola 20 years ago, they became like a very famous grape, and everybody was planting, and then there was like Nero d'Avola for 80 cents a liter, and it was like a disaster. This, I think, cannot happen in Etna because the cost of the handling a vineyard in Etna is much higher. So this keep the level of the quality.
This guy speaks from experience. Like, he was the top sommelier, I think 2004. So it's 20 years ago. He was the top sommelier. He saw what was going on, and he's right. How many $7 Nero d'Avola do we see? In Ontario alone.
Well, and that's it. It's always music to my ears, music to my sweet, sweet millennial ears when I hear someone talking about how we need to be mindful of costs for managing the vineyard, so we need to make the quality better to match the cost. And just like, well, there we go. The magic recipe is on paper not hard. Obviously, making top quality wine is the challenging part. Making sure you have the right people and equipment, but people in Ontario, we need to get rid of the GGO because it's a hindrance to us producing high quality fruit.
Yeah, GGO kills because they sell by the ton. They don't sell by the.
Well, and you get a bonus based on sugar, level of sugar, and that's it. And there's no incentive if you own a vineyard to crop your fruit down. Where I've heard literally 2 winemakers in the past 24 months say that crop yields don't matter and that you can get high quality fruit at higher croppings, but I've heard from literally thousands in the other category, including probably the entire region of Burgundy, certainly the Côte d'Or and the Côte de Nuits, that will say cropping down produces better quality fruit.
So we're going to go down a little bit of a rabbit hole here, and we're going to get a little geeky, but we started to talk about the growth of Etna wines, and then it turns out that Federico wrote a paper on Gen Z, and it's really, really interesting how he got to write about it. And
I want to read it now.
On the other side, I'm going to have Ofelia talk about it.
Just to give you an idea, when I arrived in 2008, I was winery number 37. Now we are 250.
Yeah.
So just in 15 years, the boom has been great. Many of them are very small wineries, so producing probably less than 10,000 bottles overall. But about the generation, that generation, I made an event just on this table. Since I bought this vineyard, I wanted to do this. I wanted to bring people there and discuss about life, love, future, wine. And this is what I did. I invited 10 people from Gen Z, so people from 22 to 28, 29, 30 years old today, to give me their idea about the future in wine and the wine of the future, because everything is changing so fast. And it was very important. At the beginning, I imagined this event like discussing with one of these guys. He was saying to me, Federico, the limit, our generation cannot approach a certain model of wine. One person, 25, 26 years old, cannot drink Chambertin Rousseau, cannot drink Romane Conti, cannot drink some very important wine, some Monfortino. It's very difficult. The barrier is high. And my first idea was, okay, I have some of this bottle at home because I could buy them. I've been in the business quite a lot. So I could buy La Tâche when it was affordable, expensive but affordable. Today is not, I couldn't afford. Mm-hmm. So I said my idea at the beginning was like to share what I had in the last 30 years of working in the wine industry, to give back a little bit. And I had the chance to buy. I would like to share with these people because it's important for them to understand which my models were about wine and which model inspired me about what I'm doing today, you know. Some example, Raya or Hermitage Chave, all these wines, many of these people did not. Yeah. And then I put down this list and it was like, wow, it is an amazing list because it was like the youngest master wine in the world. It's CSM. She's living in London, but she's from Singapore, and was like a sommelier from Geranium Copenhagen, so one of the best restaurants in the world, 3 Michelin star. They open this bottle, they do. And Gaia, the cellar master of Masseto, she drinks Bordeaux, top Bordeaux every day. She has to compare Masseto to all the other wines. So at a certain point, I saw the list. I said, okay, I invite them. I wish I had the bottle, but I want to know. I want to listen. I think I have to listen. And so I asked them to bring something like a page of what they think about the wine of the future and the future of wine. And then I decided to put on a paper because you cannot miss the chance to have printed and to have.
Yeah, so it's a nice paper, and it's the production of the magazine is called the Bromio, which is a very typical Gen Z word, which is like bro as a brother, and mio is like my brother, like a bro.
Hey bro.
Hey bro, yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
So he co-write with them, and there are all these interviews, and there are the vision of these guys about the future of wine and the wine itself. And what is it's interesting is the way they tackle all of this, because he like built a bridge. From, let's say, from wine to the idea of values that all these guys might have. So it was really, really interesting. It was a kind of a cultural act of wine, and everybody was like astonished because nobody has ever done what he did. Like, okay, we open up bottles. Now you tell me if you like it or not. Just this. And in which wine do you find value or not? And what are your value? So it's like... I don't know you, so you tell me. So his idea was, I just want to listen to you, which is a very great thing, because Jenna is like, I teach you how to do this. I teach you how to, how to taste. This is basically what you were talking about, like a sommelier, like that. There's somebody like that, as like talking down and say how you have to drink.
Yeah,
no, it's the opposite.
It's been something I think I've learned over the past few years is that we need to do a lot more listening, and I think it might just be coming from a Canadian perspective, because we are a landing point for so many cultures here, is the way that someone with parents from Hong Kong are going to taste wine is going to be a lot different than the way you or I would, because you were raised on Italian cuisine from wherever you're from which part of Italy you're from, where I was raised on a lot of Eastern European food, which, when we talked about before, I had my revelation about Riesling being great in the winter with my grandfather's cooking, where, we have the great LCBO Food and Drink talking about patio sippers, and we'll post pictures of Riesling in the summer, but not in the winter, because they're making their decisions on marketing based on spreadsheets as opposed to the cultural elements. And it is one of the issues I take with formal wine education right now. And I'm not saying that we need to completely rewrite the textbooks, but I'm also saying we need to rewrite the textbooks, because they are largely written based on the European palate. The tasting wheel is based on what the European North American palate is used to, as opposed to a broader experience. So I think doing more experiments where you put people in a room who maybe don't have a lot of knowledge and say, do you like it? Yes or no? And I know I've shared this story on the podcast before, but I made the wine list for Kalgoorlie in Toronto, and the clientele was largely Indian. And I tasted with the owner of the restaurant, and he picked some of the wines out. And I was thrilled when he picked a Gewürztraminer, because to me that's something I love with a curry that has a lot of cardamom in it. But I would go into the restaurant Friday night and just see the clientele drinking a whole lot of Ripasso reds, drinking big red wines. And the thing is, am I going to go and tell his clientele they're all wrong because the Indian clients prefer to drink tannic reds with their Indian food? They're not wrong. We're wrong if we're trying to tell them that they're wrong.
Yeah.
Well, what it was also very interesting is the kinds of wines that he's opening are those iconic wines. And yes, they are iconic to us, but are they still iconic to Generation Z, or are they looking to, I hate to say it, are they looking to Josh, or are they looking more towards...
Well, I mean, that's the thing, though, is I know I crapped on the sommelier is looking for the next best and bright thing. It's just maybe that is the not bad part of it, is some of these wines are on a pedestal that without a doubt are not worth it. And that's why when you were in Bordeaux and I was messaging you, is you got to taste some of these icon wines, and I asked you if they were worth it. And the thing is, you've asked me while I've traveled if some of these icon wines are worth it. I've tasted Aubryon. It's not worth the money. It's not even close.
Very expensive, and no, I didn't think Aubryon.
We've tasted Armand de Brignac. It's not worth the money. I've tasted Salon, and I'm sorry, champagne lovers, for what it costs to buy a bottle of Salon, you can buy 2 bottles of Krug or 3 bottles of Krug.
Did you find a lot of let's say the first growth, were they really worth the price that they put on them?
So, okay, some of them, yes.
Some of them, yes, but not all. So we're gonna get into another geeky topic here, because this is where the inner geek inside of me, because of his passion, it took over. So my inner Andre came right out, and we started talking about ungrafted vines, which led in a direction that I had never even thought about.
No, actually, in the old vineyard, we have an average of 30-35%. And but I'm planted some younger ungrafted.
Okay.
So
cuttings, or you're taking
pieces,
your own cutting.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we call it taillé. So we go in the very old vineyard. So to preserve the biodiversity, cut the pieces and leave in sand for 1 month with some hormones for eradication, and then put directly on the ground.
And they seem to work very well in Etna.
Actually, they do. They are better in the vineyard I planted. Was the ungrafted was 1/3 of the total size of the vineyard, so it was 4,000 meter above 1,000 to 1 hectare 0.2, and it reacted in a better way to the heat, and it's quite strange, but probably yes, it's the way they used to do. And yeah.
So I'm going to get geeky here for a second, because I've been to Cyprus. And they are, a lot of their stuff is ungrafted, and a lot of their stuff is planted on very high hills.
Yeah.
And very high mountains up to about 50. They said they are up to about 1,500.
Wow.
Does height have anything to do with maybe ungrafted vines or?
Of course, height help reduction of insect presence, yes. And this is the first step. Secondly, we do have sandy soil. So this is the most important reason. It's you don't give the chance to the larva or the phylloxera to do this tunnel and reach the roots, because if it's a problem of the leaves, it's a problem. It's not a problem. It's a very little problem. The problem is if the larvae. But if we have a very sandy soil, just drop the tunnel, and yes, the larvae they cannot replicate. But I believe if you are 1,500 meters above the sea level, you don't have the risk, even if you don't have sandy soil.
So, I don't know. We need mountains, I guess, to get ungrafted vines. Andre, maybe you can start something on Hamilton Mountain.
dude. I mean, there's already vines on top of Vine Mount Ridge. The thing is, it gets colder on top of the mountain.
What did you think of the mountain? What do you think of the mountains here, Ofelia? Do you like the little Hamilton, the little bump we call a mountain?
Do you call it that's the point.
The signs in the city even say to go up the mountain.
Yeah. So we know that Italy has many more mountains that are
maybe.
I
they have
have
hills in Italy that are higher than Hamilton Mountain.
In all seriousness, I've wondered if it might be worth some experimentation in the Lake Erie North Shore, because I know their soils are much sandier than they are in Niagara. I know obviously there's the challenges with the winter, but I wonder if there would be any benefit to doing ungrafted roots. And I also know, like, Michael, like we're at the tip of the iceberg. Rootstock is becoming a massive conversation behind the scenes, and it's just like it's one of those things where, similar to barrels, you and I have done a few hundred of these, and we've never had a Cooper on to talk about toast levels and things like that. It's come up as like a byproduct of a conversation, but I don't think doing a 30 or 45 minute interview podcast about barrel toasting would be the most interesting thing on the planet, or yeast strains or rootstocks. But for those of you listening, if you want to have a conversation about rootstock, feel free to slide into DMs at Andre Wine Review, at The Grape Guy, at Ofelia
Biancaneve.
Bartolucci. Biancaneve.
So Andre, moving this thing along a little bit, I don't want to go too long with. I could have spent hours with Federico here. He's so good. But trust me to ask a silly question. I was just kidding with him. I really was. When I asked him about having a go bag.
Because of the volcano.
Because of the volcano. And if you talk to Ofelia, actually, that is something that is going around Europe at the moment.
Wait, you have a go bag, Ofelia?
Oh, yeah. Do you wanna really know the story?
Yeah, tell me a little bit about this go bag. You got an email or some kind
of... Wait, Ofelia, do you have a go bag?
Yes.
Clean underwear, toilet paper, water, is that it?
No, it's...
and passport.
And money.
It's money, it's passport, and it's Swiss cutler. You know the one that you open it?
Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, Swiss Army. And
okay, Ofelia, let's be real. We know what you have is a corkscrew and not a Swiss Army knife.
But seriously, this is something the Europeans are saying you should have. So I asked him, just kind of as a joke, about a go bag, and he took me very seriously.
Etna hasn't really blown up or done it for 800 years. But do you still have a go bag?
Yeah, you cannot take the vines away. There is one thing about Etna compared to other volcano. And, for example, if we compare the Campanian Vesuvio in Naples, it's related to the consistency of the magma. So the consistency of Etna is related to the content of silice. More silice you have, more dense is the magma. So Etna has a magma that is quite liquid. So give you the opportunity of going away. It doesn't blow. Vesuvio has a lot of silice inside, and so it is an explosive eruption. It will be an explosive eruption, like happened in Pompeii, like might happen, we hope not, but it might happen. So in one side, we are not afraid of losing our life. We are afraid of losing our vineyard. I mean, if you lose a vineyard, you can lose for many reasons, the fire or whatever it is. So, yeah, if you lose for a fire, you can replant. If you have lava stone all over your vineyard. You cannot do. But in this case, this happened in 1981. If people had vineyard and they got houses and vineyard, the Common of Randazzo in this case gave another territory to compensate. So you had the chance to replant your vineyard somewhere else. Yes, as long as we don't, risk our life, and shouldn't be the case of Etna.
I don't have a go bag, and I was in a house fire.
Well, see, I don't have a go bag either, but it's something that Europe is definitely talking about. But I mean, it's very interesting how he talks about the two volcanoes, and we've been on Vesuvio. We've gone up, and it looks very dormant, but it's still active in theory. But it's interesting because I always think when a volcano blows up, it's going to be lava everywhere. But it's but he tells about the two different kinds. Like one's just silica dust that's going to go up and basically suffocate everything, whereas Etna's slow. It's a slow moving coup. Right, it'll take your vineyard, but it's going to be slow. You're going to be able to, walk in front of it. So as it goes down the mountain and takes your stuff. So
I just remember the big news story when Eyjafjallajökull erupted in 2010 in Iceland, and planes couldn't move for 2 days.
But that's all dust, right? It's
and
not.
I think I'm lucky we have no Icelandic listeners to know that I butchered the name of that volcano. I just wanted to say. Eyjafjallajökull.
Yeah, we all know you butchered it. So
this red's really good. We
have discussed a lot of things, and we have another wine to taste. We're kind of tasting it now.
Yeah, this red is outstanding.
But I'm gonna let Federico talk about his future. We're gonna taste the wine, kind of discuss it amongst ourselves here, and then. We'll talk about it with you on the other side.
Yummy.
The future of my project is keeping experimenting. So I want to keep experiment. I want to produce the best wine I can in my palate. I mean, with my point of view, of course. And to have a more stable situation in the vineyard. 15 years, 16 years in wine is nothing. So I feel old. I'm 50. So, but at the same time, I feel very young in wine because I've been producing wine as a production. I'm producing wine for just 15, 16 years. It's not much. So I have time to learn, and at the same time, I want to keep experimenting. So. Ungrafted vineyard, I planted some Riesling because I want to experiment some new variety, and I have some ideas not very far from what I'm doing now. And then if my experiment goes somewhere in which I really think it might be interesting, and then I can move. But as I said before, I see what I feel, and then I can decide to move on to something else. My idea is to stay on Etna another 30, 35, probably, hopefully, vintages. Try to do better and better wine and enjoy it.
So we're trying the Rosso di Mezzo. I have to tell you, Andre, this is the first time I tasted this. I've tried another one of his wines. What was that one? The Etna. It was a
Profumo di Vulcano.
Profumo di Vulcano. We tried 5 or 6 vintages of that during his seminar. This is my first time with the Rosso di Mezzo, and wow, I am. Again, we're getting that minerality, that stoniness. That there's so much going on in this wine, and we're both. All three of us are. I don't want to say gulping it down, but we are enjoying each sip, and I'm watching everybody's face, and it's like it's a religious experience to drink this wine.
It's continuously shocking to me how when you taste an Etna wine that it's cool climate wine.
Yeah, it is.
And
it is.
And when you picture Sicily, I want to go to Sicily in the summer because I imagine it's going to be very hot, very humid.
When you go up on the volcano, it's going to be cold, but it's wonderful.
Cold, but wonderful. But I want the heat. Like I picture the south of Italy in the summer being very hot, and it's just really like when you taste these wines that are, cool climate to their core, like you scream about the acidity. That's my Michael Pincus impression.
The acidity is really there. That minerality. there's a little bit of fruit there, but there's so
but
much.
it's
so much
super balanced. I mean, that's really elegant. You think of something
Elegant is
like
probably
But it's
the
like
word.
it's
Yeah.
leather, but it's not tannic leather like when you drink Bordeaux. Like it's got like the smell of a really nice leather jacket.
It's a fine Corinthian leather. So
Do you know that the leather in those cars were not from Corinth at all? It was just a marketing thing. Do you know what car you're even referencing?
it's a Chrysler Cordova, my friend.
Oh my god, that is I can't believe you nailed that.
So it turns out that this wine, the Rosso di Mezzo, is a wine that he had to make because he had to make something with wine. And I'm going to let him tell you how or why he ended up making this wine.
One of the wine I produce is just became a wine after I didn't do Profumo di Vulcano in a very similar vintage to 2009. In 2018 we had 30 days of rain. So I decided to declass the old vineyard, not to Profumo di Vulcano, but not as low as my simple Etna Rosso. So I put this Rosso di Mezzo that is in between these two wines because I vinified a very weak most, not in oak as Profumo di Vulcano, but in still. And just this wine came out and was like fantastic, and I wanted to replicate it. So a couple of years later, I decided to put ungrafted vineyard to be able to replicate this. But at the same time, in the following year, this wine became quite famous for me, and people really enjoyed. So I couldn't change the blend because beside the first vintage, which was coming directly from the very old vineyard, all the following 3-4 years, Rosso di Mezzo was the older but not Centurion vineyard I had. And this blend is really, people enjoy it. It's the precision on the nose.
The number of times this guy says enjoyment, I think it's another lesson to the rest of us that we should really be chasing enjoyment, whether it's for yourself or for other people.
Wine is about enjoyment, and period, the end. That is what wine should be. And if you're searching for something else other than enjoyment when you're drinking wine, I don't know what you're doing with wine.
You're trying to make money.
I got it, but I mean, if nobody's enjoying it, no one's going to pay for it.
I mean, a lot of people drink
Why are
Molotov.
you looking at me like that?
No, I'm
If
just
you're not
asking.
enjoying a wine, then why would you buy it? I know there's some who buy it for investments, but other than that, there's no other reason. If your plan is to drink the wine, you've got to enjoy it.
Yeah,
If
of course.
Then
Let's say that there are many levels of enjoyment, like it for discovery, to compare. There's a lot. There's a world. It's not just okay, you drink easily.
Yeah, but the thing about Federico though is like talking about his Gen Z experiment though is he's really looking for like that initial visceral response. Like I'm sure that to him these are cerebral wines, and he's working really hard at making you. And I'm sure he spends a lot of time thinking about these wines and how he makes them. But I think he probably cares more about the fact that someone who knows nothing about wine would set foot in his winery and enjoy the wines than he does about needing to explain them to him.
I don't know, because for example, he had very great masters.
Yeah.
So he spent a lot of time listening to everybody, and when he says, I want to experiment, and my next 15 years was going to be experimenting. I don't know if it's so cerebral. That's what I mean.
No, but I think you misunderstood what I said. Is I think he is crafting cerebral wines, and this goes back to the issues with, I think, a lot of the orange wine and the natural wine movement, is you have people who think they're crafting cerebral wines, but then they need to tell you why they're good. Where I think for Federico, he is working really hard to craft the wines he wants to make, but he wants people to enjoy them, and he makes sure that people who know nothing about wine will be able to enjoy them.
Yeah.
you don't need the winemaker to be there when you open the bottle to tell you why it's a good wine.
Exactly.
You understand why it's a good wine.
Exactly.
So I'm going to get to my
got it.
last question with him, which is always about, what's your favorite wine? And then, you know what? Ophelia pipes in, and she's got a completely different question to ask him as well. You and I are sitting at a table.
Yep.
And I say, okay, you have one bottle that's currently on the market.
that you want to present to me and show me how good you're doing? What's your bottle of wine that you're putting on the table? Of your wine, obviously.
Yeah, I was thinking something else, of course. No, I think. I mean, we discussed about the developing of my project about the Profumo di Vulcano. So I would say it would be Profumo di Vulcano because I'm working on it as trying to do it better and better. And I think today I'm happy about in 15 years what I did in 15 years. Probably for some other wines it will take a little bit longer to be like a perfect suit, like for the white wine. I think I still have to work a little bit, and I'm not 100% happy. I'm not 100% for Profumo as well, but I think I'm getting closer to what I have as an idea of Etna wine, important Etna wine for me.
So would it be the 2022 Profumo?
2022 Profumo, it's probably, yes, my wine.
Would be the wine he puts on the table.
And for the Z generation, who would be?
For the Z generation, I think probably Marineve. It's because of the blend, because of the freshness, because of the low alcohol. It's something that would be much more interesting for them. Yeah, I think it's closer to the idea they match, they want, they look for as wine. Yeah.
I want to go to Etna.
I do too.
Oh, yeah. We should gather a little bit of people.
Gather a trip together.
Yes.
Wait, can you drive there? Is there a ferry to Sicily?
You can drive.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay, it's a way to do it. You know what? I think we all loved these wines, the two that were sent. And again, well, not again, but I first want to thank the Somm Shop,
Okay.
who is the agent who brings these wines in. No offense to the Somm Shop, but I've never heard of you guys before. But I'm glad that we connected. I'm glad for Federico to say who he was working with, and we got these wines in, and so that we got to taste them and tell you how fantastic they are. You got to check out Federico Graziani's project, and it is Fedi Graziani, Fede. Fedi Graziani is the project.
I will put it all in the show notes for those of you who can't handle Michael's.
Whatever I'm saying.
Yeah.
I also want to thank Ofelia for being here with us. Ofelia, you want to tell us how people can find you on Instagram?
I'll be on Ofelia Biancaneve.
Thank you very much. Thank you for adding the Italian flair to the podcast.
It's much better than when you do an impression of her.
Oh, boy, you're going to get me in trouble tonight.
Yeah.
And then...
At Andre Wine Review on social media. Michael, thank you so much for bringing a really great story. I've really enjoyed learning about these. Is this we still have some more of your tape from your wonderful journey that you took in?
Correct. There's more tape from Suma. Do you know what? We'll discuss this, but obviously I cut this interview down for this podcast. Maybe we could just put all of Federico's interview up.
Sure, why not?
I think as bonus content.
I think people liked the Danny Roland interview that we posted raw in its French.
Do you know what? I'm just putting some thought into this. Maybe for Patreon people, you put a few dollars in the kitty. You get to hear the raw interviews that we do.
You know what? That's a good idea. That's it. You guys want to hear the interviews? It's behind a paywall.
Yeah, we're going to put them on a paywall. You want to hear the raw interviews that we just didn't cut down? That might be the way to get you guys to slip a hand in a pocket.
We're not asking for a lot. It's like $3 or $4 a month.
Yeah, the paywall is going to be very, very cheap. You can get in. But look, I also want to thank Spencer Prue for creating the soundtrack behind me every time I spoke. So thank you very much.
She's been a pretty well-behaved 2-year-old for the most part, but you should turn around, take a look at what's on the floor.
There's going to be a lot of, oh my God, I hope that's not Lego.
Yeah, watch where you step.
Yeah. So I'm Michael Pincus of michaelpincuswinereview.com on social media as the Grape Guy. Thank you, Andre. Thank you, Ofelia. Thank you, Somm Shop. Thank you, Federico. You were wonderful. Thank you, Spencer. Good night.
Thanks for listening. Please subscribe to Two Guys Talking Wine on iTunes.
Two Guys Talking Wine is produced by Adam Duran and Ken Little.